What's up, YouTube Live, YouTube community, everybody hanging out in the chat already. I know you've been patiently waiting. Listen, I run on John's Standard Time. It's a little thing called JST. You guys asked me to tweet out the links here or my YouTube Live show times in what time zone. Like, make sure I specify that it's the Central Time Zone. I'm obviously always going to be in the Central Time Zone, but really what you need to know is that I run on JST. It's not CST, it's JST, John Standard Time, which is typically like ballpark like 15 minutes late, and I'm right on 10 minutes late. So here we go. Basically, what I'm telling you is I'm on time, and damn it, I am fired up tonight because I'm seeing something that I love out of Brett Yormark's Big 12. The battle between the Big 12 and the Pac-12 on Twitter has like heated up big time. It feels like in the last even 24 to 48 hours, that's been cranked up to like 11 when it was maybe at a 7 or an 8. And the Big 12 official Twitter account has now entered the chat. That is the big news today after we had a real battle, like a knockdown, drag-out Twitter battle between Jason Scheer of the Arizona 24/7 site and John Canzano, who is one of the key members of the Pac-12 propaganda machine, who is the Oregon reporter and radio host. And again, has done, I'm not trying to totally disparage these guys, but definitely has written stories with a heavy Pac-12 slant, right? He and Jason Scheer went at it big time on Twitter today. Everybody's fighting with everybody. Wilner has taken shots at Big 12 Twitter. Canzano took a shot at Big 12 Twitter today. You know, Stuart Mandel's been involved in this a little bit too. It is like all the stars are out. You know, I mean, it's like a red carpet right now, Big 12 v Pac-12. Like, all the stars are here to shine tonight. We need to get a paparazzi out there to make sure we get pictures of everybody right now. Like, it is pretty crazy. And look, you guys know where I stand. You guys know I'm here to defend the Big 12. I also am not going crazy off the deep end trying to say that the Big 12 is a, vastly superior conference to the Pac-12 and all of that. But you guys know where I stand. It's been so annoying to see the Pac-12 lifted up to a place where it is higher than it should be. And that's the frustration here. So we're going to rage against the Pac-12 machine a little bit tonight. I'm going to try and get you all up to speed. If you're not somebody that is real Twitter savvy, if you don't spend all day on the app like I pretty much do, I'm going to do my best to get you up to speed as much as possible here. But there is a bigger picture significance to all this, and that is the one tweet from the actual official Big 12 conference Twitter account. And you can debate how much of a dunk it really was. Like, I think it was something that I love to see. As I said, I think it was fair game. I think it was a good move marketing wise for the Big 12. I don't think it was Vince Carter jumping over that dude in the Olympics, like the worst dunking on we've ever seen. I don't think it was that, but I don't think that matters because we have somebody who's going to fight for us now at the top of the conference. That is the real big picture takeaway for me today. And what I want to stress to you, like how refreshing it was as somebody who was in the trenches in the league for 10 years, man, working for 10 years, covering the league, obviously covering K-State, but being a part of the league, traveling around, knowing what it was like with the Big 12 and how they kind of operated from a marketing standpoint. This is a breath of fresh air. And we are 3 days in. This was day 3 on the job for Brett Yormark, and we're seeing that from him. Like, that is the takeaway from today for me. So we'll get into all that. You guys know the drill if you've been here before, which I'm sure many of you have. If you want to be a part of this chat and you want to get your question or comment on the show, the way that you do that is click the $ below the chat box where it says say something. You donate with your question or comment that ensures that I see it. It tacks it up at the top for me and ensures that it will make the chat. Otherwise, there's going to be too many people in here. I will not be able to get to very much of it throughout. Plus, when you do that, you're supporting the work that I'm doing, bringing you Big 12 content each and every week here on the channel. And I see R Web already in here. Thank you for the donation, R Web. R Web says time to shop. Signed B Yizzo. B Yizzo. B Yizzo might be a little bit of a stretch. R Web. I'm all here for the Jay-Z quotes and references. Of course, for Brett Yormark, who's coming from Jay-Z's record label, Rock Nation. But B Yizzo, I don't know. We may need to workshop that. Chat, let's help everybody out here tonight and like workshop a better name for Brett Yormark. But I get what you're doing. I mean, technically, that is sound. If we're talking about H to the Yizzo, like, you're doing it correctly there. But I just don't love the ring to that. All right, we need to figure that out. So that's how you get in touch with me on the show here. Like Christian just did. Christian says, For newcomers, and I appreciate the donation and the support, Christian. Christian says, for newcomers like myself, what are the origins of EMAW and Rock Chalk? Go Cougs. All right, well, I can definitely give you EMAW. EMAW is Every Man a Wildcat. That is what that stands for. It was a phrase. You can find pictures of banners in a Hearn Fieldhouse, K-State's old basketball arena that hasn't been used in decades. You can find pictures back in like the 50s, maybe, of that hanging up on banners there. So it's been around for a while, kind of died, and then went through a revitalization period here recently. So yeah, that's the rallying cry for K-State. Rock Chalk, I'm going to be honest, like I feel like I should probably know more about that than I do. Let me just say it's a chant that you will not hear very often at football games. Does that work? That's the origin of Rock Chalk that I got for you. Someone else is going to have to. Okay, I see Matt says it comes from the limestone buildings on Mount Oriad. All right, I know the Oriad Hotel is something in Lawrence, right? Okay, off and running, man, Christian. That's you get me in a little bit of trouble, a little bit of hot water here early on. I've already taken a shot at Kansas. The intention tonight is not to be taking shots at anybody in the league. All right, we are united front against the Pac-12 right now. We have not started playing football games. Let's all be united here as we go forward with this. Also, if you guys could do this for me, it is free. It doesn't cost you anything. If you can just like the video, one like, that's all it takes. One click is all it takes. And that is another way you can support the channel here. Helps me out with the YouTube algorithm and all of that. So with that being said, let me try to give you a recap of what has happened here. All right. Basically like a little study guide. So there's been a lot of bluster within the last 24 to 36 hours from the Pac-12 propaganda machine on Twitter. And you guys know who that is. That would be John Canzano, John Wilner, and Stuart Mandel. Again, I always like to make sure, differentiate here. Like, I respect these guys, particularly Wilner, for the reporting that he's done, how dialed in they are with the Pac-12. They are clearly on tilt a little bit right now because they've been bombarded by you guys, frankly. I mean, Big 12 Twitter has just been eating these guys alive in their mentions, so they are growing frustrated. And regardless of whether they're right or wrong, you agree or disagree with them, I will say this in their defense. I've been in their position many times. If you guys follow me on Twitter, hell, if you watch the channel, you guys know, like, I got a bit of a mouth on me. I'm not shy about sharing my opinion. So there have been plenty of times where I've had entire fan bases all up in my mentions. Go back and look at, like, I don't know, when was the basketball coaching search for K-State? Like April? Go back and look at April. I got Illinois' entire fan base coming after me about Brad Underwood. And, so I've been there before where you just get real frustrated. You get really frustrated and start kind of lashing out and taking some shots. So just know that means you're being effective, right? We are a pretty united front and fighting for the league right now, and you're being very effective in the fact that they are starting to lash out. But that doesn't mean that we can't respond and we can't take inventory of what it is that they're saying here. Okay, so let's start with John Canzano's latest, because he is the one that is barking the loudest right now. So Canzano, he's Oregon based, covers the Ducks. Really popular, big following on Twitter. Has a website where he's writing articles almost every day throughout this whole saga. As Stuart Mandel pointed out, he is somebody that did a lot of reporting on the failings of Larry Scott. So it's not always been like over the top pro Pac-12. Although in a way, I would say that if you're reporting the stupid crap that Larry Scott did, you are basically pro Pac-12. You're fighting for the league and the sake of the league when your commissioner is leading you astray. But he's got a radio show and is a reporter as well in Oregon. So this was his latest piece. It says, in the meantime, the athletic directors of the Pac-12, I'm starting in the middle of the piece here, but it says, in the meantime, the athletic directors of the Pac-12's remaining 10 schools are still communicating regularly and tell me they're upbeat. Said one AD, the dialogue, candor, and environment have been positive. Everyone is moving in the same direction. Are there still threats out there? Sure. Said the AD, quote, it's a singular threat, the Big Ten and the Big Ten only. That's it. The Big 12 threat is laughable. There you have it. One athletic director speaking through John Canzano from the Pac-12 says the Big 12 threat is laughable. You can tell how much this has really gotten under the skin of those in Pac-12 country. And most of this is coming from, again, you guys. I will give kudos to Big 12 fans for fighting this battle, man. Like, nobody is relenting. And it's carryover from last year when we were all literally fighting for our lives. Maybe not quite to that extent, maybe not quite as dramatic right now, but still essentially the same fight. We're ready for this battle. We're prepared. We've been in it. We've been in the trenches. Pac-12 fans, what are they? Do they have an army of 7? I don't know how many people out there actually care enough about the Pac-12 to really fight this battle. And so that's a part of this too. But that wasn't it. Canzano went on to say, there have been reports about the Big 12 trying to poach Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and Arizona State. Nobody at those schools seems interested at this point. Nobody at those schools seems much interested at this point. Let me get these words right. Nobody at those universities seems much interested at this point. The financial advantage just doesn't appear to be there. But the noise annoyed the Pac-12 anyway. Pac-12 Commissioner George Kliavkoff holds a degree in journalism from Boston University. He told me on Friday that he's frustrated with the Big 12's tactics. Now, this is where it gets pretty funny. Quote, it's incredibly destructive, but that's why they do it. When I was in journalism school, we were taught you had to source things from 2 reliable sources and you can't run with it. Now we've got folks in the national media reporting stuff that is on burner Twitter accounts. It's unfortunate. It's the world we live in. I don't have thin skin. I'm okay with this stuff, but it does destabilize people. Okay, so let's unpack that. Let's unpack that from George Kliavkoff. I mean, first of all, he's got a whole army of esteemed reporters that are writing stories that are very slanted toward the Pac-12. And I wouldn't say that they're not all straight up. Like, this all gets very complicated. It's not all straight up like lies, but it's things that, for instance, the Stuart Mandel TV numbers, they're numbers that lack proper context. When they get put in proper context by the Sam Bradshaws of the world following up, there's no correction there. And then they stand and stay. And the Pac-12 has far more in terms of reporters in their back pocket right now that make an impact than what the Big 12 has. Nobody's ever stumped for the Big 12 like what we have going on for the Pac-12 right now. So to suggest that the Big 12 is really the problem there, to me, is a non-starter. I cannot get behind that statement. Now, this is a commissioner basically doing the same thing. I guess his point here is he's not a journalist. He's got to fight for his league, right? But everything he's doing is trying to position himself in a position of strength, and his league in a position of strength, when that's not the reality right now. So it's just a little bit laughable for me to hear that. He's also saying people are reporting stuff from burner Twitter accounts. 2 things here. One, I guess shout out to MHVER3, because I'm sure that's a lot of what that's in reference to. But the fact that like Dennis Dodd, some of these people, Dennis Dodd has had some crossover there. There have been reports that have crossed over with some of the things that have been said on these burner Twitter accounts. That doesn't make that inaccurate. Pete Thamel is the one that reported about the Pac-12 approaching the Big 12 with ideas for a merger and the 3 different possibilities they wanted to explore for a merger. That's Pete Thamel. That is like the head honcho of college football reporters right now, ESPN's lead guy. You're going to tell me that that's burner Twitter account stuff? Like, get the hell out of here, man. That's not. Like, these things have been reported by people with actual journalistic credentials here. So, all right, if his point is like overall the game's changed a little bit in journalism and the way we operate with short attention spans and all that, yes, but the same bleep thing is happening on your side. So it's clear. I'm very annoyed by those comments from Kliavkoff. And then, it's just the attitude with all this. Canzano then follows it up with a tweet today after he put out that story, and I'm sure got bombarded by all of you guys in the mentions. He follows it up with a tweet that says, the insecurity of Big 12 fans is real. Everyone is a little nervous, but get a grip, guys. All right, you hear that? I guess I'm here from John Canzano to tell you guys to get a grip. All right, so if all 417 of you in the chat could just get a grip a little bit right now, we'd be okay. Just roll my eyes at that. And just inviting, obviously, plenty more in the mentions. And that definitely came from everybody today. So everybody on both sides is clearly getting a little bit exhausted with this. I mean, frankly, I'm getting a little bit exhausted with this, even though I'm just drawn into it. And my instinct is to fight here. I mean, I'm going to fight for the league that I know and love. So it's just clear that the temperature is really amping up here. And it was escalated for sure by Kliavkoff's comments last Friday. That is probably really the genesis of a lot of this. Not only the comments that he made publicly, but the fact that he was there and talking with all these different journalists from across the Pac-12, that just gave everybody information to write stories about. Like Canzano, some of these quotes, I think clearly are coming from Pac-12 media days. So the stories start to trickle out as everybody uses the slow little drip to get that info out and fill some time here in July and August. And that is why I think you're seeing tensions really escalating here. But again, I would say, frankly, another part of it is there are just more people out there willing to fight for the Big 12 right now because we have better fan bases, more engaged fan bases, and just better college football programs that have fans that care. And I mean, that's what really matters. I'm not saying in TV contracts, I'm not saying any of that. What really matters about the greatness of the game is having fan bases that are really engaged, passionate, and care. And that is there in spades in the Big 12, as all these guys are finding out. Okay, so that's kind of the backstory of where some of the tension was beginning to build up today. And then we got this. John Wilner says, and I don't know why he used 2019 attendance numbers, but John Wilner tweets out 2019 attendance, Pac-12, 44,704, Big 12 minus Texas and Oklahoma, 49,378. Not a significant difference. Plenty of empty seats in both leagues, which is a very interesting strategy because if I'm defending the Pac-12 here and I'm making the case for the Pac-12, and by the way, there is a case, it does not include anything involving butts in seats or just like fan bases in general, like caring about the league and the schools that are playing football. That is not the way that you attack that if you're the Pac-12. So I was a little flabbergasted that was the route that he decided to go. I suppose the thought would be there, well, hey, this is one of the things Big 12 fans feel they have a massive advantage in, so let me go after this with numbers that will make this not look so glaring, so glaringly obvious. I think you can tell just by how everybody has reacted to all this on social media that there's a pretty glaringly obvious difference between which fan bases actually give a what about their schools. But hey, that was the point that John Wilner decided to make today. And it was pounced upon by none other than the Big 12 Conference. The Big 12 Conference itself, on third day on the job for Brett Yormark, and he deploys the actual at Big 12 Conference Twitter to go after that. And what the Big 12 said was, well, just a graphic. It has a graphic of every single school and the percentage of capacity. So instead of just using the raw attendance numbers, it was percentage of capacity. The Big 12, it was Baylor at 100.84. K-State was number 2 at 97. Iowa State, 97. Oklahoma State, 96. TCU, 93. West Virginia, 93. Tech, 88. And Kansas, 67. The Pac-12, it's like Utah's 101, Oregon 99, Colorado 98, which I don't know. It was 2019, the year that they made the Pac-12 title game with Mel Tucker. That one seems like there's no way in hell that could possibly be true. But then Washington 97. But then you have a huge drop off. Washington State, Arizona State, Oregon State, Stanford, Arizona, Cal. There's a pretty big drop off and a pretty big discrepancy there. But so again, it's not like these numbers are totally crazy. If you average them out, the Big 12 average capacity is 91.84%. The Pac-12 average capacity is 84. So, it is a 7% difference, but it's not like a 30% difference or something that would really be like dunking on somebody. On average, the Big 12 had almost 3,600 more fans per game than what the Pac-12 had there, with only a slight 1,128 average capacity advantage. So, there are some numbers to provide some context there to what the Big 12 did. But again, to me, the significance is that the Big 12 did this, that the Big 12 stepped up and did this and is deciding to fight for itself through its own channels. And it seems like that is pretty simple and not that big of a deal. But I'm going to explain to you why I think that is a huge deal, that's happening, regardless of whether or not this is some massive Vince Carter dunking on the dude at the Olympics moment. I'm going to get to some of the donations here really quick first. If you want to donate and get your question or comment into the chat, you do so by clicking the $ below the chat box where it says say something. We'll start with Julius here, my man Julius. Thank you, Julius. Always appreciate very generous donations from you. Julius says, howdy, John. Just checking in. Who is worse, Pac-12 writers or people who don't like the video? I'm going to say people who don't like the video. All right. So great, Julius. Not only are you a supporter of the channel and donating there, but you provide me you just teed me up to be able to tell everybody to please like the video. There are 501 of you in here, and we've only got 94 likes on this video. So that is a free thing that you can do. Listen to my man, Julius. Thank you, Julius. Okay, what else? We have Viewer X1. Viewer X1 says, better ultimately to look east for time zones, eyeballs, and matchups, especially after the Big Ten and SEC raids, Louisville, Virginia Tech, NC State, Pitt. I'm definitely there with you. I would love to be able to pick off some of the second tier schools in the ACC. It just feels like the momentum has died, at least for now, on the front of the ACC being rated. Again, they have the long TV contract that goes for another 12 years. There had been talk for a while there, including, Josh Pate, who's a pretty respected name in the college football media game, had said what he was hearing was that everybody was going to just, we'll figure it out in court. We'll take teams, figure it out in court. We'll try to fight the grant of rights and not worry about it too much. That was picking up a lot of steam for a while. Now I have not seen nearly as much of that. And a big portion of that is that the SEC is basically publicly and privately, it sounds like, at least according to the reporting, said like, we're going to stand down for right now. And the Big Ten, even though they left the door cracked open, appears to be standing down for right now. So it doesn't look like anybody's willing to play that game. There's not enough of a desire to expand at this point to fight some battle in court and have to deal with the financial ramifications of that. But if it does happen, I'm with you. I think the question will be, when that happens, is the Big 12 still in the power position to go take those schools? That will be the big question. Trevor, thank you for the donation. Trevor says, I feel like Colorado, Arizona, and Arizona State talks have died down. Is that still likely to happen? Well, I wouldn't say likely as of right now. I think the reason it's died down is because I think there was a moment of panic there in the beginning, everybody wondering what's going to happen with the Pac-12. Really a fairly similar story to what the Big 12 experienced last year. There's an initial period of panic, and then there's a step back and like, all right, let's see what we have here, kind of reevaluate. For the Big 12, the obvious answer was you had to expand. You had to go do something. Bowlesby did that, and that pushed in the stability. For the Pac-12, their calculus is different because in large part, they're going through this TV negotiating window right now. So an interesting thing there, tomorrow, August 4th, that's the last day for the 30-day exclusive negotiating window for the Pac-12. The thought process seems to be right now, and Canzano echoed this, that the Pac-12 is not likely to accept any deal there, and they'll take it to market instead of just, exclusive negotiating window with ESPN right now, right? They're not going to get an offer enticing enough from ESPN to just take it right now. So that'll open it up to everybody, and that's going to start a longer process for them to actually know what their TV value is. And that's always been really the next step in all of this, is those schools will want to and need to find out what their TV value is, what the TV contract money is going to be before anything happens. Then the next step for the Pac-12, and this is the criminally, I think, underreported thing, or at least under-discussed thing among Pac-12 country, is can you then, once you find out what that value is, can you get Oregon and Washington to sign any kind of grant of rights? How long are they going to sign away their rights? And then it will be, can you do that? And then it will come down to like, all right, is everybody else on board for this? So there are a lot of hurdles to clear, but because of that, we don't know what the Pac-12's actual TV value is. Yeah, I don't think it's likely to happen right now. Is it likely to happen in general? That's a much different question. Like what time frame are we talking? And just nobody really knows. It's clear that if the Big Ten decides to expand, they're going to go after some Pac-12 schools. And that if one leaves, if two leave, whatever it might be, then I think all bets are off and the Pac-12 is pretty much going to dissolve, and the Big 12 would very much be in play to pick up those schools. So that's basically where I feel like it sits right now. And outside of like the initial period where it was, hey, gung-ho, go get them, see if you can pry them loose right now where there's panic. I have been sitting here saying the whole time, I think you're going to have to wait for the Pac-12 TV contract saga to play out before anything would actually really happen there. And I've tried to be pretty upfront about that now. And so I know a lot of the Pac-12 writers, I'm sure, feel like everybody around here thinks, oh, it's going to happen tomorrow. It's going to happen today, whatever. Yormark's taken over. It's going to be done. I have never been in that camp. And I remember saying that on the last show, that I didn't expect that to happen on the first day. R Webb, thank you for the donation, R Webb. I got 99 problems, but a grip ain't one. B Izzo. Still going B Izzo. All right. I guess the chat has not taken to any other name other than B Izzo. All right. We'll keep rolling with it, I guess. If that's what you guys want, I'll let the people speak. If the people want B Izzo, we'll keep going with B Izzo. Gary, thank you for the donation. Gary says they nicknamed us the Angry Eights. Their nickname is the Suicide Pack. All of them claiming they will go down with the ship, but they all have exit plans. Yeah, and that's another part of it today. So I talked to Brett McMurphy today, who is with the Action Network, used to be with ESPN. He's reported on multiple rounds of conference realignment. If you want to check out my 3-Mile podcast, which is also, we do also have that on YouTube. You can hear the entire interview if you search that out. Go to my Twitter account at JL Kurtz. You can find a link to it too if you want to listen to it in podcast form. I wouldn't say that he said anything earth-shattering, but he basically said what you're saying right there. Yes, right now the Pac-12, he was at Pac-12 Media Days, and he said, I think everybody right now is unified front, preaching that. But behind closed doors, you know that everybody is still plotting and scheming, and they do have exit strategies. So it's not like Kliavkov is really lying when he says everybody's unified right now. We're trying to figure this out. I mean, I'm sure they are. It's a pain to move conferences. It's a pain to leave regional rivalries. There better be really good reasons for you to leave. So you'd rather have it. They would rather find out that they're going to get $55 million a year from their TV contract and everything's honky dory, and Oregon and Washington will sign up. So of course they're in a way working to that right now, but at the same time, you got to back channel an exit plan, an exit strategy for you, and I'm sure that is happening too. By the way, you're right. You are right to point out there, Gary. I love that you did that. Yeah, we heard a lot of the irate eight being the nickname for the Big 12 schools left around last year. Listen, if you're going to mess around and name them the irate eight, then you can't be surprised when they're going to be pretty irate a year later when the Pac-12 is getting more preferential treatment from most of the national media than what the Big 12 did. John, thank you for the donation. John says the Pac-12 is delusional, and that is to the Big 12's advantage. Potentially. That's an interesting theory there. Like, I wouldn't even say, delusional. They're fighting for their lives, just like the Big 12 was last year. And delusional feels a bit strong for me for most of them. It's just a little unfair and elitist. I think there's an undercurrent of elitism out there, the same way that a lot of people here in the Midwest and flyover country feel like they've always been treated by people on the coast, and like the Big 12 has always been treated. So I think there is that undercurrent there, which is what fuels a lot of the anger too. And I try to make that point to Canzano on Twitter. I mean, to no avail for a response from him today. Not that I was expecting one, but I tried to make that point to him too, where it's like, it's sure there's some insecurity there, but it's less about insecurity than it is just anger and frustration at how this is being treated and how this league has been treated over the last year and over the entire lifetime of the league. There's never been enough respect for it because it is in the middle of the country, this flyover country, and people on the coast just don't care. And this is like the perfect way to throw some gas on that fire, or really probably the better way to phrase it, like put a magnifying glass on that, because you have a league in the Midwest and a league on the West Coast dueling it out here for survival. The Cold War going on between these two is a legitimate like war for survival, and that really points out the differences there in how the two leagues are treated and perceived. Matt, thank you for the donation. Matt says, it's sad to see the media in California being in the mud rooting for the Pac-12. They are not being objective. How can they call themselves journalists? Well, Matt, I would say that there are different levels to this. Canzano being a radio host and then like a reporter with the school, and I'm not even familiar with all of his background. But I mean, I can tell you, I was in a position that was similar when I was working for 10 years in Manhattan covering K-State. I hosted a daily radio show in Manhattan, which your job there is to be entertaining and have opinions. It's not to be a reporter. There is a big difference between a talk show host and a reporter. But then I was also covering press conferences. I would write stories. So then you have to put on more of a reporter hat and kind of change and be different. And then I was also doing play-by-play for the school, which means you have to be very positive. That's almost more like marketing. You're an extension of marketing for the school because you need to frame it all in a positive way for the school, or at least as positive as you can. You can't crack down as much. So there are a lot of, and the media game now is less and less specialized. You're in one of those areas, and more you've got to do everything because it's so competitive and there are so few jobs and there's not much money to go around in a lot of these places. So that is somewhat of a defense here for guys like Canzano, who's wearing different hats. And that is going to lead to, you're not just a straight reporter. It's not like Walter Cronkite or something, or Woodward and Bernstein, right? It's a different role than that. Now, Stuart Mandel, that's a little bit different. Mandel should be more of a, like what I would always joke around and say, Big J journalist. Because, that's really his role as a reporter. John Wilner. And Wilner, I think, is, for sure, more in that journalist role. But then when you introduce, like, Twitter becomes a different piece there, where that's a little more opinion-based and you're more interactive, and it's less, let me go search a story and vet it and all these things. That's just the world we live in today. So some of that is, in their defense, kind of how the system is set up right now. there are different levels and different shades of it. It's not totally black and white. So I will at least say that, as frustrating as it is at times that we see, the way that this has been handled by some of them, and as slanted as some of it seems to be. Okay. And that could be a whole different show. It's the world around us, whether it is news, politics, sports, whatever. That's kind of the way it goes. Kevin, appreciate the donation, Kevin. Kevin says, love the show, John. I listen to your show and my boys at Cyclone Fanatic every day. I need to get you guys together for a beer sometime and make peace. Go Clones. Well, Kevin, let me say this. And I saw Chris Williams tweeted at me today, actually, but I don't know if you saw our public back and forth the other day. I mean, there have been shots fired from Cyclone Fanatic at me and my 3Ma podcast. Well, me personally before, when I merely tried to point out that TCU has a higher upside as a program than Iowa State, when TCU's won 11 games like 4 times in the last 10 years, and Iowa State's never won more than 9. And apparently that was a ridiculous statement, which, I'll let that stand on its own and everybody be the judge of that. Then 3Ma podcast, one of my boys took a slight little jab because Iowa State got a first place vote in the Big 12 preseason poll this year. That led to, like 20 minutes of babbling on Cyclone Fanatic about K-State and some inaccuracies there that were then pointed out astutely by my guy Cole Manbeck. And then there was talk of them inviting us on a pod, and we were certainly willing, and it just kind of died. So the ball is in their court. Let me just say that, Kevin. The ball is in their court if you want us to get together. We are more than willing, made the offer, put it out there, and then crickets. So that's where it is. That's where it is. But I appreciate you supporting the show. And I got in my 1 point there about TCU. That's it. We're united front here. All right, Big 12, united front. For real though, thank you for that. Oh, Kevin, I see another one. Kevin says, by the way, just jumped on me. Sorry, this chat jumps on me. Kevin says, by the way, Farmageddon is the best rivalry in the Big 12 after Texas and OU leave. Why do we got to wait for Texas and Oklahoma to leave? Best rivalry in the Big 12 anyway. Damn it. All right. Got me fired up in a good way, Kevin. Thank you. Juan, thanks for being here, man. Good to see you as always. Juan says, what do you think happens if the Big 12 were to somehow add San Diego State very soon? My boy Kuz made some good points on his channel recently. Hey, shout out to Kuz. You all should check out Kuz's Corner on YouTube. Another great place to get Big 12 content. I know a bunch of you have already. I've seen that thing growing like crazy. But definitely another great source of Big 12 content if you want it. I think, San Diego State's interesting. Brett McMurphy, who, again, I talked to today, he was much lower on. He was not very high on the Pac-12 expanding and adding San Diego State. He kind of made this point, why? You're really just diluting more than anything there. I see more appeal to San Diego State than what he was really letting on there. If the Big 12 did it, it would be in tandem with Arizona at the very least, I'm sure. Arizona, again, has seemed the most willing and likely to leave. If you can't pull anybody else out, I could see a scenario where you take San Diego State to pull away the best replacement candidate for Arizona from the Pac-12 and do a little bit of harm there. Again, zero-sum game, kill or be killed. I think it's much more about that than what you'd be adding in monetary value, but it wouldn't hurt to have another team in the Pacific time zone and at least a little chunk of the Southern California TV market, maybe a bite more so than a chunk, a nibble. But you're still getting in a little bit there. So there's value. What do I think happens? I mean, it would just put the Pac-12 in a tighter spot, an awkward spot. If you're able to get Arizona and San Diego State, then the Pac-12's at 9, and then San Diego State's gone. Now they're moving down to Fresno or Boise or something like that. Probably Fresno. I mean, that's the one we've heard the most about. It would be a solid situation for the Big 12. But I think the key is you got to get someone else coming too. You can't just be adding San Diego State right now, just specifically would not get it done. But San Diego State is much more in the conversation than they were. Certainly, there's no doubt about that. So I think you're on it with that trend and asking that question. Okay, Bud, what's up, Bud? Bud, LubbockGuesthouse.com. If you need a place to stay in Lubbock, I say it every show here. Bud, great supporter of the channel. LubbockGuesthouse.com. Hit that up if you are going to scenic Lubbock, Texas, as I did back in. I keep saying February. I get it mixed up. Ames was February. Lubbock was May for Big 12 outdoor track. Bud says, good job, John. San Diego and Phoenix, each about 1.5 million population. Always be building the base. Yep. I mean, there you go. If you're able to get into Arizona as well as into California with San Diego State, there are some definite advantages there. So very, Very well played to parlay on the back of the comment that we just had there from Juan. Thank you for that, bud. John, if you want to freak the Pac-12 out, add San Diego State and Boise. I almost think Fresno would be the bigger hit right now. It seems like Fresno is higher up on the Pac-12's list. Although one thing I didn't get a chance to read today, I saw Stuart Mandel in his mailbag had teased that he had Pac-12 expansion candidates. So I have not yet read that to get up to speed on what's going on there. Zach, thank you for the donation, Zach. Zach says, in a world where the SEC is forcing Texas A&M to be conference mates with Texas, what are the odds the Big Ten would ever tell Ohio State to be quiet as it tries to poach Cincinnati from the Big 12? I think a tough thing, and this is another thing Brett McMurphy was stressing to me earlier today, is the SEC in particular has kind of had a long-standing policy to just not get into a state that they're already in terms of like expansion, what they think about that. Like, and he was using the point of Oklahoma State on down the road if the SEC is expanding to like 24. Well, they're already in Oklahoma with OU. Do they want to go get another school? And I understand Texas and Texas A&M are in the same state. I think that's very much the exception to the rule because of the power of those brands and Texas in particular. You're not going to pass on Texas just because you're already in the state with A&M, right? So that's something that Cincinnati would be fighting against. I just have not heard a lot of buzz into it. Feels like Cincinnati would be pretty low on the list. So, I mean, look, would they tell Ohio State that if they felt Cincinnati brought enough value at some point? You know, if Cincinnati continues to make the playoff on a regular basis and make noise and Fickle stays around, like I don't, I'm sure they would. I think at this point, there's not really anything stopping anybody from like in Ohio State. This is no knock on Cincinnati at all, but Ohio State's such a behemoth. Would Ohio State really stand in the way of Cincinnati being added to the conference? I just can't really see that happening. I'm sure they wouldn't be thrilled to have a little extra competition recruiting-wise. That would give some extra juice to Cincy. But, yeah, I don't think that would be a big deal if they got to that point. I really don't. Let's see. I saw somebody say, I need to take Bud out for drinks. I absolutely do. I tell you what, Bud, if you ever are in Kansas City, please let me know, and I will let you know if and when I get back to Lubbock. MH, Neilio. Yeah, that's right. What's up, Neilio? Thank you for the donation. Neilio says, good Wednesday evening, John. Great show as usual. Keep up the great work. Appreciate you, man. Longtime supporter. Always appreciate you being here on the channel and in the chat tonight. Thank you for tuning in once again. James, thank you for the donation, my friend. James says the Big 12 needs markets and good programs, a.k.a. Utah, Colorado, and Arizona bring markets, but let's invite a team that can beat the SEC in the Big 10. Conference brand matters. SEC is in several small markets. Yeah, the Utah, again, is an interesting case because we talked about just a second ago being in the same state. You've already got a big presence in the state of Utah with BYU. And Utah, as great a program as they are right now, which they are, I mean, that's a really strong program doing really good things. It is, I wonder about it being a little bit of diluting things if you're adding them because you already have BYU. You've already got a lot of that state locked down. And I don't know the ins and outs of like who really controls it there, but I know BYU is certainly more the national brand because obviously of the LDS connection. So I think you'd rather have BYU. And then do you want to throw Utah in on top of that? But yes, I mean, bigger markets and just getting the thing. Look, the other thing I think that's missed with all that, I think the biggest advantage of the four corner schools is being able to solidify yourself into that after dark time slot. If you get 3 or 4 of those schools, now you have paired with BYU 4 or 5 schools that can play there. You could theoretically have a game that I don't know how the math would work out, but basically every week you could have a game that's kicking off in that late window, that like 9:30 window. And that would be huge for the TV money. So I think that is as important as anything when you're talking about those sorts of things. Robert, thank you for the donation, Robert. Robert says, Cleveland rejected Big 12 teams, joined the Alliance, voted against the 12-team playoff, and lost USC and UCLA, and the Pac-12 is in a better position. Give me Yormark. Plus the Cactus. All right, so Robert, Tech fan, love that the Cactus is still a thing. I have not seen it quite laid out totally like that, but that's a pretty damning report on what George Kliavkoff has done so far in his time in office. Rejected the Big 12 teams, which if he had taken a Big 12 team or two, not only would there be some extra padding right now with USC and UCLA on the way out, but it also would have killed the Big 12. And it's exactly the same situation reversed as what we talked about when it happened this time around with the Big 12. Kill or be killed. Go get the Pac-12 teams just to in the conference. Who cares if it's going to lower your average payout every single year a little bit. It's better for survival to go ahead and just kill a conference. And he ditched that. Now, LA Times reporting has revealed that one of the big antagonists and all that, somebody who really shut it down, was the president at USC, which is very ironic now that USC has left. And doesn't that sound familiar about some of the Texas and Oklahoma stories we've heard over the years and ways they limited the Big 12's growth, and then they wind up leaving? So I will say Cleve Cobb probably just didn't have enough weight to throw around at that point with USC's president, and USC was their Texas. They have to kind of bow down to what they want, but it doesn't look good on the resume. Then join the alliance. Yeah, looks for sure like a fool based on what happened with the alliance. Voting against the 12-team playoff, which was basically a subset of the alliance, going along with what the alliance did. Terrible move. Horrible move. The SEC and the Big Ten will never have to agree to anything if they don't want to that has automatic bids for conference champions anymore. A horrible thing for the Pac-12 and Big 12. And then losing USC and UCLA. Yeah, not good. That, Robert, well done. Well done. Way to lay that out. That is very well done. R Webb's giving me another Jay-Z quote. I can already pick up on that. He says, "Mama ain't raised no fool. Put me anywhere on God's green earth, I'll triple your worth." I literally just listened to that song, R Webb, like 10 minutes before I came on, because when the Big 12 sent out that tweet that we're going to talk more about here in just a moment, I got fired up. So I threw on Jay-Z, because that's what, when I think of Yormark, like I think Jay-Z now, man. The Rock Nation connection is there. So that's good stuff, R Webb. I love that song. One of my favorite Jay-Z songs. Believe it or not, I may not totally look like it. Believe it or not, I am a pretty big hip hop fan. Let me report this person here in the chat. Sorry about that, guys. See if I can get that out of there. I had a moderator for a couple of chats here a little while ago. Apparently, I'm going to have to get back to that. Justin, thank you for the donation, Justin. Very kind of you, my friend. Justin says, "Hey, John, do you know if BYU could veto Utah's admission to the Big 12? I don't know. I mean, I don't know for sure. I would not claim to know, like, for sure the dynamics of that. They could certainly make their case, but I doubt that anything like that is going to really fly. That's an interesting one, because if there is a school that has a little more cachet, BYU would be on that short list. Because one, they hold the value of being able to play in that late time slot, which we know means a lot to TV. They've been a very good and enthusiastic partner since coming into the league. They have a national brand. And going back to a report from last year, BYU was the one school that was said from those in the industry would actually add dollars to the Big 12's TV contract. So TV execs like BYU being there. That does give them some leverage. But this is also a league that does not want to be bowing down to the needs and like the will of one school anymore. It wants to be more cohesive and more together. So I do doubt, because of that, I doubt that they would have the power to totally do that. But I still think the situation with Utah is far from a slam dunk, just because BYU is already there. So their mere presence may do it anyway, especially if the Big 12 has the option. Like if they feel like they have the option of doing something else other than Utah, I think that would be on the table. But I guess, to answer your question, I think it's a good one. I think the answer would be no, because of what this league wants to be now, and not have Texas or a Texas, controlling things anymore. But again, BYU's mere presence there, I think, would be at least somewhat of a hurdle to clear for Utah. Calico Willie, thank you for the donation and for being here. Calico Willie says, "Hey, John, for reference, I live in Nebraska, and my coworkers today giggled when I confirmed that Adrian Martinez was the Cats starter. I almost told them their golden coach was trash and couldn't win with him." Well, you should definitely tell them that. I do not think that their coach is very good. Look, Nebraska fans are going to laugh about it, and I understand why they would laugh about it, because they've gone through the frustration of what their team has been. They've watched Adrian Martinez be the trigger man for a lot of that. I would tell you, I think having a not the worst offensive line in the history of Power 5 football is going to help out a hell of a lot at K-State. I think having Deuce Vaughn's going to help out a lot. I think having a guy who's a much better coach is going to help a lot. And I can build you a case that Adrian Martinez is going to be successful. But I am looking at it through the lens that I want to. And this is sort of like the whole Pac-12, Big 12 battle, right? What lens are you going to look through to make your case here? So until it actually gets out there on the field and happens, I would just say my advice, and the way I'm kind of going about it right now, is like, I'm just going to quietly keep my mouth shut. I'm very high on Adrian Martinez at K-State. I think he will be pretty good, but I'm just going to wait until it happens. Because if it happens that K-State has a lot of success with him this year, That is going to be awesome, Calico Willie. So you got to wait, pick your spots, get some tweets ready in the drafts, just save them in the drafts, get them cooked up and ready to go, and then unleash them when Adrian Martinez is rolling it up at Oklahoma come the first game of Big 12 play, okay? That would be my advice to you on that front. Kuz's Corner. Thank you for the shout out. Of course, man. You keep killing it too. Kuz's Corner. Once again, go check it out on YouTube. Another great place to get Big 12 content. One of the great content creators here in the conference. And I know everybody is just starving for all of it right now. So go soak it up there and see my guy Kuz. Robbie, go Cats. Ready for some football. That's right, Robbie. A little more K-State love there. Robbie, I see you in the chats here all the time. Thank you for always being here and supporting the channel. John says, okay, G5's not as good as corner schools need them. Yeah, look, I mean, I think in one case, San Diego State has a case that they could be as valuable in some ways to the Big 12. That would be like the one exception that I would potentially make there. Make sure I'm not missing anybody here. Good Morning USA says the Big 12 will be in the best position to poach the best ACC leftovers. That alone should be enough for Pac-12 teams to want to join the Big 12. I'm sure the Pac-12 will internally make the case that, hey, we're actually best positioned to do that if we can survive for right now. If that were to happen, if we make it to that point, ACC schools would rather join us. We were already in the alliance together. We see ourselves as much more the same than the Big 12. And I'm sure all of that's true, but the problem is going to be making it there for the Pac-12. That is the issue, and that's why it really feels like it's coming down to Big 12, Pac-12 for survival if there's not going to be 5 Power 5 conferences moving forward. Troy, thank you for the donation. Extremely generous of you, Troy. Troy says, John, the toothbrush was engineered at Oklahoma University. If it had been engineered at any other university in the nation other than at Norman, it would have been a teeth brush. Okay, well, you got to laugh out of me there. The toothbrush as opposed to the teeth brush. Is that true? Can we get some confirmation on that? Can somebody do some Googling for me? The toothbrush engineered at Oklahoma University. If it had been engineered at any other university, it would have been a teeth brush. That's funny. I assume that the joke there is, makes more sense. You're brushing all the teeth, not just one tooth. It's not a brush for one tooth. You're brushing all the teeth. That's good stuff. Troy, Texas fan, Troy, Oklahoma State fan. I'm also curious about that. I'm always here for a good joke at Oklahoma's expense, but I'm also curious about where that comes from, what the fandom is that spurned that. But I dig it. Thank you for the donation. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting the channel. Seriously, really do. You guys are too kind, man. Every single show here. Calico Willie giving me a yes, sir. That's right. See, you gotta store some good tweets in the drafts, man. You have those queued up every once in a while and just ready to go. It can be not only a good way to do it, but just kind of cathartic. If you can't get it off right now, just type it out, get it in the drafts, and then it's almost like you said it. Boom to the Sooner. Boom to the Sooner says, if suddenly Washington State and Arizona said we want to come to the Big 12, would you happily take them? I don't think you can take on Washington State. I mean, that feels to me just like a life raft for no reason. I'm sure Washington State, well, I don't really know. I mean, I guess, I don't know if you told Washington State, hey, we'd take you right now. Do they come? It's probably a more stable future, I suppose, than the Pac-12, but I don't know. That would depend, I guess, on their faith there in that situation. I mean, I'd love to have Arizona. I don't know that Arizona's worth taking Washington State on with them. I think in that scenario, you'd say, well, sorry, Wazoo. Love you guys. Love when the Pirate was your head coach. Ryan Leaf was cool and all, but we're going to take San Diego State here and get into SoCal and go that route. So I don't think, boy, I don't know. Because again, I'm kind of going against my own advice there. I'm imagining a scenario where that's the only option. Somehow San Diego State is saying no, right? You got to do that to get Arizona and to pull a couple teams from the league and throw them into more of a tizzy. Tough call. I'm going to lean no. I'm going to lean no on that one. But very interesting hypothetical there. Okay. I'm going to get into Brett Yormark and the Big 12's tweet here a little bit more because I did want to make it a real point to discuss this today. So as I said earlier, but just a refresh because I know a lot of people here were not here earlier. John Wilner, who is the guy that broke the story, USC and UCLA to the Big Ten. He's the real authority in terms of being a reporter on the Pac-12. He tweeted, and again, I question using anything involving attendance and fan interest as a defense of the Pac-12, but he went this route, and I don't know why he chose 2019 attendance numbers, but he did. And it says 2019 average attendance, Pac-12 minus USC and UCLA, 44,704. Big 12 minus Texas and Oklahoma, 49,378. So it's about a 5,000 seat difference. He says not a significant difference, plenty of empty seats in both leagues. And that, I mean, his error there really is saying plenty of empty seats in both leagues, because now we're talking about capacity. Like USC and UCLA, I know he's excluding them from these numbers, but we've seen like the Rose Bowl and the Coliseum, massive stadiums that are about 10% full. I mean, we've seen that a lot. So this is not created equally. You need to make sure that you are, what is the percentage of attendance here as opposed to just raw capacity. And so the Big 12, the official Big 12 Twitter account, quote tweeted it at the end of the day and hit them with a graphic that had all the numbers from each school in the Big 12 and the Pac-12. And it was a slight advantage for the Big 12. It does show that the Big 12's average capacity is 91%. The Pac-12 average capacity, 84%. So you have a 7,000, or rather a 7% difference there for the Big 12. To me, the significance here is not about the content of the message. I think that's, a slight W for the Big 12. It's nudging back at Wilner in terms of the actual statistics that are being levied there. But the significance of this to me is the Big 12 being proactive, sticking up for themselves with the media channel that they have, like a direct route to go after somebody, and just the fact that they're willing to fight, that they're willing to do that. If you're willing to go after a John Wilner tweet that randomly comes out about 2019 attendance, that tells me you're willing to fight. You're rearing to go. That's using Twitter like most of us use Twitter. And you would typically think of like a conference. In the old college football world, you think you're going to wait until like something that really matters, something that's really important, if you're going to use your actual official Twitter account to go out there and do something. And frankly, I mean, we just never saw the Big 12 do anything like that in the past. So I am so thankful that Brett Yormark in his third day on the job is already willing to do that. That's another piece of this. The guy has not been on the job very long and gave the okay to go ahead and throw that out there. The Big 12 trying to market itself and fight some of these battles itself instead of relying on media that clearly was never going to do it for them. And we saw that last year. Nobody was stumping to write stories about how sad it is, the state of college football, and why the Big 12 should survive and all of this. We didn't see any of that last year. We're seeing much more of it this year for the Pac-12. So the Big 12 is taking matters into its own hands. And I just love being proactive in trying to go after some of these narratives. And this to me is a tone setter. It is telling everybody, not only in the Pac-12, but across the country, we're here to fight for ourselves. And remember, the biggest advantage really in hiring Brett Yormark is that this guy is a marketing guru. That is, I believe, the exact terminology Kevin Warren used in one of those interviews, marketing wizard. I mean, it was something to that effect, praising the ability of his marketing acumen. That's what Yormark wants to do. And this to me is smart. Go fight some of your own battles. Don't rely on others to do it for you, because nobody's been doing it for you. And it's how the Big 12 has become a punchline over the last 10 to 15 years, because they never were proactive about anything. And we heard that all over the place. Dan Beebe could tell you all about that, not being proactive, letting yourself kind of be timid and get run over. And even with Bob Bowlesby, who did a great job in a time of crisis last year to go add the 4 schools that he did, and did levy the public accusations against ESPN. Just always, he was much more the old guard, like in college athletics, like respectful. He ended up backing off, the ESPN comments and not going further with that. We saw like one public comment from him there. We saw another where he admitted that the Big 12 was losing 50% of its TV value from Texas and Oklahoma. We just never saw a ton of it. Not a ton of fight, not a ton of spunk. It was much more, hey, we're going to worry about decorum, and not all that's out the window. This is a different deal. And let me submit as evidence to that a quote from Brett McMurphy. Brett McMurphy had a source telling him that the current state of college football is like Game of Thrones. It's getting voted off the island. It's bleeping crazy. How do you trust people now? That's a source within the game of college football talking to one of the most esteemed reporters in the game right now. And if that's the context of where we're at right now, if those are the rules of the game that you're playing, this is the kind of stuff that you need to do. No longer You have to worry about how it looks if you're responding to a random reporter from a different league on Twitter. Forget that, man. Go out and get in front of it. There's no time to like cook up a press release or wait for some press conference to get your comments out there. You got to do it now. This is a social media world. Twitter does run a lot of things here and helps form narratives. And that is where sports fans are. You got to go meet them where they're at. That's what Yormark is doing. And you got to be quick. There's no time to sit around. You've got to fight these things when you can. And I love that it feels like Yormark completely gets that. And more importantly, let me just ask you, like Big 12 fans, you guys that were here last year when we started doing this thing on the channel, didn't it feel like we were the only ones out there fighting? Not only reporters, but like I said, the Big 12, fairly silent for the most part. There was not much of this going on. It felt like we were all waging this war by ourselves and literally fighting for our lives and the lives of the schools that we all love. There was nobody out there with us. Now, I feel like we have somebody leading us into battle and somebody that I can trust leading us into battle that has been there in very important meeting rooms in the entertainment world and in the sports world. He's been in rooms with Jay-Z hanging out, right? Working for Jay-Z's label and marketing that. He's been a guy that orchestrated, at the time, the largest deal in North American sports history for NASCAR, which is a far cry from being on Jay-Z's label, right? So how about that for some range? He also moved the Nets from New Jersey to Brooklyn. I mean, does it get much bigger than that? This is a guy that commands a room, and he's now ready to lead everybody into battle. Instead of being disjointed and us having to do it through Twitter and Sam Bradshaw writing great articles and trying to get some amplification of those out there, now there's someone doing it for you with the actual at Big 12 Conference account. And people took notice, man. National college football reporters took notice. Like, there were people tweeting about it. Brandon Marcello, who I believe is the national guy at 24/7. Josh Pate, I think also is 24/7, but has one of the most popular college football shows out there right now. Like, people were commenting and taking notice of that. Not so much about the significance of the numbers here to me as it is somebody at the league is going to fight for us and is going to help lead us into these battles. You should feel great about that. And that, to me, is the big takeaway from today and everything that has happened. Feel good about the leadership that you have in this conference. It's a new day, and I can't wait to see what the Big 12 continues to do, the innovative ways they're going to do this, just updating, freshening up the conference. Even think back to the comments that Yormark made about, like, we need to be hipper and cooler, basically, as a league. Well, one way to do that is to get on Twitter. Like, get on Twitter, tweet some things, be out there, mix it up a little bit. That's taking on the personality of your fan base and trying to get younger. Now, Twitter's not the youngest demo. I mean, if they really want to be young, hip, and cool, they're going to have to get on TikTok. But this is a step, right? This is a step in the right direction for sure. Very pleased to see that today. Let me run through some of the rest of the donations here. I got about 5 minutes left with you. If you want to donate, click the $sign below the chat box where it says say something, and that's how you can get your question or comment onto the chat and guarantee that I do read it. 005 Prime says 2 things Oklahoma has in common with Mars: red dirt and no sign of intelligent life. Woof, boy. People coming after Oklahoma. Coming after good old OU today. But listen, I'm not going to stop you. Not going to stop you from doing that. When I said united front for the conference, they are not one of us anymore. No longer one of us. Adam, thank you for the donation. Do you have a new rivalry you're excited to see start up, i.e. UCF Houston, Space Battle, BYU Houston, Cougar Clash? I've always said with this, like, I'm excited to see what rivalries kind of naturally take shape. I think it's hard to predict some of them and like what will really kick up. I mean, like Cincinnati, West Virginia, I think has potential there. I'm super thrilled to watch Houston play Texas once, which it looks like is actually going to happen. Like, games like that very much get me excited and get me going. UCF Houston's a good one. UCF, I think, is going to pick up somebody, and I don't know who it is. Like, I feel like UCF they're going to get under somebody's skin big time, if not everybody's eventually, but they will get under somebody's skin and I think form a really fun rivalry. So I really look forward to that. People kind of joke about, like, Holy War 2.0 with Baylor and BYU, but if you look at what their football programs are, like, that could be a really fun series. I think those are some possibilities there. 005 Prime, I see you comment in the chat there. I hope you were still stuck around. I did get to your donation. Sometimes I just got to stop if I'm going to work in some of the other content because it's coming hot and heavy. I did get there. Just had to wait a little bit. So I do apologize about that. So The chat moves fast, man. I make sure to try and get to all of you guys now, but it may not be just right away. So I apologize. And if you ever have any issue with that, man, hit me up on Twitter at JL Kurtz. More than happy to talk it out with you guys. Nathan, odds the Big 12 actually expands, getting concerned now. Well, again, it kind of explained that earlier when someone had a question about that. Everything's in a holding pattern now. You're going to have to wait for, and I've been saying this for a while, you're going to have to wait until the Pac-12 finds out what their actual TV contract offers are. That's going to dictate how this goes because there are two factors. One, is it enough money? And two, will Oregon and Washington actually sign? Will they actually give up the grant of rights for a long time? Because, Oregon's athletic director just was publicly non-committal about it at Pac-12 Media Days the other day. So that's the holdup. It was, the initial period, there was a chance, I think, that you could get somebody in that initial panic period from the Pac-12. Once we got out of that first week, it became pretty obvious to me. It's like, okay, here's the scenario. They're going to have to see what their TV value is going to be before anything happens. Hello, Farm Life. Hello, Farm Life. Thank you for the donation. Hello, Farm Life says, everyone enjoying the arrogance of Utah. They have more riding on the Pac staying together than anyone. Let's hope they stay there and dominate the Mountain West Conference teams that are going to join them. So I'm going to take a guess, Hello, Farm Life, that you are a BYU fan based on the tone of those comments. Yes, it appears that BYU fans have quite the overinflated ego. There is no doubt about that. I understand. I mean, shoot, I saw, who was it the other day? I want to say it was someone at The Athletic. There was a top 25, a preseason top 25. Man, no, it wasn't The Athletic. CBS Sports, maybe? CBS Sports, I think. Had Utah at number 4. So, I mean, they're a great team this year. They've obviously been doing well in the Pac-12. But that doesn't mean, we've learned this. That doesn't mean that your value is what you want it to be. Like Baylor has had phenomenal seasons, just won the league last year, but they're not a hot ticket in realignment. And I think that's the deal with Utah right now. I wouldn't say they have more riding on the Pac-12 staying together than anybody, because I think Washington State and Oregon State are the clear 1 and 2 there, but they're in the next group, basically, which is everybody else in the Pac-12 not named Cal, Stanford, Oregon, or Washington. Boom to the Sooner. Boom to the Sooner. Boom to the Sooner. I respect the hell out of you for being in here with the Oklahoma shots being fired today. Boom to the Sooner says, do you take the over or under on me having more than one tooth? I will take the over there. Boom to the Sooner. I trust that you have a beautiful full set of pearly whites, and I appreciate you being here and supporting the channel and having an interest. I just genuinely appreciate that you have an interest in the rest of the league, because it seems like not many of your Oklahoma brethren really do, and just kind of have cast off the league. Like, whatever, we're in the SEC. We don't care what happens to you guys. So I genuinely do appreciate that and your support here on the channel. So I'll give you that, and being a good sport about it. By the way, that's a way to be a good sport about the jokes that were coming in there. Our web, thank you for the donation. Oh, we got more Jay-Z lyrics. Our web, fresh out the frying pan into the fire. I'd be the college football biz #1 supplier. Yes. Flyer than a piece of paper bearing my name. Got the hottest league in the game. Wearing my chain. That's right. Hove. I'm going to say Hove, not B Yizzo. Okay, I still can't do the B Yizzo, but that's good, man. You're hitting all my favorite Jay-Z bars right now, our web. Love you for that, my friend. Love you for that. That is good stuff. God, every time I get down to the next comment, it takes a big jump. It looks like we got a couple more here, and then I'll get out of here. Calico Willie says, yeah, we're looked on as if we were filler in college football for Power 5, tune-ups for money in the East and LA. Yeah, I mean, I just think it's just so easy to cast aside everything happening in the Midwest, even though college football is so much more of a game where that doesn't matter. I mean, the power is in the upper Midwest and the Big Ten, and then the South, which I still think, for sure the South is going to be looked down upon by everybody on the coast. But it's just in college football, the power of the SEC is undeniable. They've built themselves into a big enough entity that the power of it is undeniable. The Big 12 has not been there. It's not quite on that level. And so therefore it's very easy to just cast it aside, being in the middle of everybody in the country. So very frustrating for sure. Chris, what a donation. Thank you, Chris. I just see a really awesome sticker of a dude celebrating and pouncing on a city. So I like that. I'm not seeing a comment attached to it. I apologize if I am missing that, but you are way too kind to donate like that. And everybody, man, that's been extremely generous here tonight. I much, much, much appreciate it. Oh, we're getting spammed again. That's probably the signal to get on out of here. All right. Let's report that person. Okay. You guys have been great. I'll give you the same message I always do on the way out. One, keep fighting the fight, man. You're getting to Pac 12. You're getting to the Pac 12 propaganda machine, clearly evidenced by everything happening today. Keep fighting the good fight. Spread the word about the channel. You have Big 12 fan friends, Facebook groups, whatever that you might be in with other fans that you think would be interested in this. Make sure to share it. Word of mouth. Spread the word as much as you can. Let's keep growing this community, which has been growing like wildfire here over the last couple of months. Really appreciate all the work that you guys do on that front. Hit me up on Twitter in the DMs at JL Kurtz. If you have anything for me, I'm pretty responsive generally there. Try to get to basically everything that I see in there. I think that's about it. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. I'll talk to you. I should talk to you guys on Sunday for sure. If anything big happens, I'll hit you up with some content in the middle there. And take care. Thank you guys for being here tonight. You've been awesome. I will see you soon.